Speed bumps and driveway curbs present a real hazard to the paint on the underside of the nose of an Aston Martin DB9. Let me show you a simple and effective way to protect it. One of the terrific features of the Aston Martin DB9 is its beautiful stance. Essentially, every line in the car is heading downhill. It's blessed with a long wheelbase, and basically the car looks like it's leaning forward and heading in that direction all the time. But along with that comes a problem. It has a long nose and very low ground clearance. How little ground clearance? Well, if you get down here with a tape measure, it's just about 5 inches to the bottom of the painted area of the nose of the car. But there's actually some bolts underneath here as well that hang down, so you really only get about 4 3/4 inches. So that really low ground clearance doesn't work well when you have speed bumps and driveway entrances where you have the slope of the road going down towards the gutter and then the driveway entrance going up. That long nose is still grinding down before the wheels even get close to the curb. So basically, scraping the nose on an Aston Martin DB9 is common. There's no way you're going to never do it. So my car was just in the paint shop and was completely resprayed. So I'm in the luxurious moment of I have no scrapes on the lower edge of my front bumper. So I thought, now's the time to do something about it. So I did some research and I looked into the different types of skid plates that you can get. And there's aluminum skid plates that you can buy off eBay. It looks like people manufacturing them. It looks like a composite kind of single piece skid plate that you can get. Well, my car is a 2005 DB9 Coupe, and one of the things that I asked about in one of the Facebook groups was, has anybody else used anything successfully? And somebody pointed me at a product called SlipLo, and it's a universal skid plate. It's basically a bunch of polyurethane strips, and you just basically stick them on and customize them to the shape of your front bumper. So I'm going to give that a try, and I'm going to show you how to do that in this video today. So let's go over and take a look at the parts we need and the tools we need. The only part I needed to buy was the SlipLo Universal Skid Plate Kit. I basically learned about it on Facebook, as I mentioned, from one of the other members of the group. And I went and searched on the interwebs and found their website. And I also found a promo. So for $99, I was able to buy this kit. And this is their 10-piece kit. And inside the kit were a few things here in the United States. It comes with a couple of packages of 3M adhesion promoter. And we'll be using this a little later to help bond the tape to the paint on the car. Comes with an instruction guide, but I would really say look at their YouTube videos online. Comes with some alcohol wipes, but I think we're going to do better using the microfibers and some bulk alcohol. And then in the box is 10 1-foot pieces of the product. So I've already measured out my car. All we need is 7 to do it. So a box of 10 is plenty. Here's what a piece looks like. Basically, this black side is the finished side that will be facing down towards the ground, and when you rub your car, it'll basically be grinding this part. The red part is just the tape backing that will peel off before we stick it to the car. And you can see it's this sawtooth design, which allows us to bend and conform to the gentle curves of the car, which is kind of nice. It's about 1.5 inches in this dimension, and it's about 1/4 inch thick. And this stuff is hardy, man. This is polyurethane. If you buy high performance suspension bushings for your car, they're made out of polyurethane, so it's designed to take load and wear. So I'm kind of hopeful that this kit will work out. So we're going to, in the next few minutes here, we're going to be going ahead and trying to fit this to the car. And we're going to have to do a little custom trimming around some of the bolts that are on the bottom of the nose of the car. But I'll show you how to do that next. So pretty neat, 99 bucks. And if it doesn't work, peel it off and go buy one of the other bolt-on, very expensive skid plates. The tools we need to install it aren't very advanced at all. You need some basic things. You need some 70% isopropyl alcohol. You could get this at the local pharmacy store near you. It's cheap, it's $1 or $2. You'll need some gloves while you're working with the alcohol potentially, or the 3M adhesion bonding solution they have you use. You need clean microfiber towels because we're going to use that with the alcohol to clean the paint off just before we apply the product. Now we're going to be trimming the product, and I found that regular scissors just aren't strong enough to trim the polyurethane material. And they say you could use a set of Hardy kitchen scissors, which probably would work, but I happen to have some metal snips, and I'm going to go ahead and use these for doing my trimming. Might also need to do a little finesse trimming, and I just have a utility knife with a brand new sharp point blade, and I have a piece of wood that I'm also going to use so I can cut down hard through the material. So that's what the wood is for. Sharpie marker, some sort of permanent marker to when we're underneath fitting the material, we're going to want to cut out the bolt, any sort of bolt holes, so something to mark those with. And a utility knife and a tape measure are always a good idea. So I thought I would show you just the general idea of how it's going to fit to the car. Okay, I love having a shop and a lift. It's cold outside, it's warm in here, and the car, I can get it up in the air so I can actually show you better what's going to go on. So essentially we're going to take the piece and we're going to stick it to the bottom of the nose, and I'll give you a closer view underneath there in a while. But so here's where we're basically, it's going to sit on here, something like this, and we're going to actually be able to decide how much reveal we want to have. And we can basically decide to kind of line up the edge of the bowl of the nose of this with the turn of this corner. You could set it back a little bit, or a mistake probably would be to have it too far forward where the adhesive part's sticking out past the nose. So I'm going to shoot for just getting the curl of this meeting the curl of the natural curl of the nose of the bumper, and then that ought to look pretty good. And remember, this is down at ankle height. In reality, you're never going to see this unless you're looking for it. It's black. It pretty much goes with the black of the grill insert and some of the other accent trims. So I think black's a good color for doing this, especially with a dark colored car like this. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this looks like fully installed. So now that we have the car up in the air, I actually want to point out that the bottom lip of the nose is not a flat, smooth surface. It's actually got all sorts of mounting bolts. It's got rivets, and it's actually wavy. This is a composite material. This isn't metal. And if you actually view it from the back side, you can see literally dip, 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 all the way along. And this is where the flexibility of this SlipLo stuff is going to come in really handy, because it's going to be able to conform. If you were putting on one of the solid skid plates, my guess is it would work pretty nice because it uses these bolts and it would sandwich it all in and kind of flatten it out. But I'm going to try it with this, and it's just going to follow the contours. But I just wanted to let you know that you're going to find yours is probably really wavy. And I bet you're going to find yours isn't nearly as nicely painted as mine right now. There is not a single scratch. Well, the next step is to start figuring out where the pieces are going to go, and do I have to trim anything to work my way around the bolt heads? Because if I just put the piece on right over top the bolt head, it's going to stick down. It's going to force the piece to peel off again later. So what I want to do is basically trim the piece around the bolt head so that I can stick the whole thing down. It doesn't matter that I've cut out a little bit. There's still skid plate here, here, and here, and along the nose. And then I'll still be able to remove the bolts when I have to do service work. So that's what we're going to lay out next. And I've already been messing with this piece a little bit. So the kit basically talks to start on the center line. And on the underneath of the car, really the center line is right between these two screws. You can even see this bolt here is in the dead center of the car. If you were to need a little visual indicator for yourself to line it up, you could use the point of some masking tape to give yourself a visual cue. But I found it was actually easier. Well, I want to get the first piece on, and since these are symmetric, when I have it so that I have to cut the same amount out of both of them, both sides, I know I've got the piece in the middle. So this piece is trimmed already, but essentially the technique is you take a fresh piece, you put it on, you would roughly estimate your reveal at the front, and you notice I've got the V of this kind of lined up with the center line, and there's nothing scientific to it. I just came in, I looked underneath, and I just kind of overestimated the amount I need to trim off. And it's hard to see on camera, I'm sure, but the mark is there, and I'll be able to follow that with the trimmings of my shears to cut that part off. So the process is really just going to be then, we start with our centerpiece, mark it, and then once you've got the centerpiece marked, I don't want to basically stick it on and then trim the next one. I thought I would pre-trim all of mine, so I've already sort of trimmed this one, and I've got it in place. And I used this piece of tape to mark the end. And then I went and I got my next piece that wasn't cut, held it up here, marked the screws, trimmed it, came along, marked the next one, same process over and over again until when I got to the very last one, if you come around to this side, it's going to be overhanging some. I have not pre-trimmed that because there may be a little bit of adjustment as I stick them on, and at the very end when I bring this piece over to butt it against the really stuck down one, that's when I'm going to decide exactly where I have to cut this piece. I'll mark it very carefully and I'll go back and I'll cut it off with the scissors before I stick it up there. So let's go ahead and get started trimming out some of the pieces. So I have a couple I still have to trim on this side, and I'll show you how to do that next. So before I really got serious about it, I knew I would have about 3 extra pieces, and I wanted to figure out how hard it was to cut. So I decided I would kind of goof around with one piece and chop away on it. So I might suggest to do that for yourself, is line it up as your first piece, mark it, and then come over and practice cutting it. Because then you're not worrying that this has to be the perfect one. You can figure out how hard it is to use the scissors. All right, so I've marked out the edge of my centerpiece. I'm holding up my next piece here, and looks like it's gonna run into this one bolt head, and it is absolutely landing right under this whole piece. So I'm gonna just decide how far back I have to cut this off. And over here on the bench, you can see the line, and I'm going to give that a trim with the scissors or the shears. So essentially I found that even with these metal shears, I have to nibble on it. So I'm going about 1/4 inch at a time. This stuff is hardy. There's our piece trimmed off, and I'll go back over to the car and just check that I have the clearance away from the nut or the bolt, and I do. And while I'm holding it up there, mark the edge on the other side to line up the next piece, and repeat. So the next steps are basically we're going to get the car cleaned and ready to stick the strips onto. You're supposed to wash your car, but I came along with a damp microfiber and just washed and dried the dirt off the bottom lip since I had it up here. So I got that much dirt off of it, which is a lot. So the next step that they talk about in the instructions is we're going to use the 70% isopropyl alcohol, and we're just going to get a clean microfiber soaked up with it. And we're going to use this. And what the isopropyl alcohol does is it's actually going to remove any waxes or oils that are on the surface. So I'm just going to clean around the bolt heads and everything here to get this. So I'm not going up on the other painted surfaces. I'm just coming along where we're going to actually be sticking on the SlipLo skid plates. And you can see we're actually getting quite a bit of, it's probably coming off the bolt heads more than anything. All right, and so then I'm going to take the clean and dry part and go back over the surface just to make sure the alcohol's gone. It flashes off pretty quickly, so shouldn't be a problem. All right, so that's it for the alcohol wipe. The next step is going to be to use the 3M adhesion promoter. So this stuff's in like a sealed package. I actually was a little worried about this. So it's 3M adhesion promoter, part number 4298. I went online because I wanted to figure out, is this going to like take my paint and turn it all soft and gooey? And then if I ever take these things off, the paint's going to be wrecked underneath. Apparently this is like a bonding agent that's designed for being on composite materials. So, you know, if you were sticking straight to metal, you wouldn't need this, but because composite materials off-gas a little bit, might break down the glue, this essentially is going to put a sealed layer on. And apparently if you use this stuff along with the 3M tape, it is like rock solid. This is what they glue logos onto cars with. This is supposed to work, it's supposed to just work great. So when I open this, I'm just going to be getting it again on where we're going to put the peel off adhesive. I definitely don't want to get it up onto the other painted surfaces. And because there's only 2 little pouches of it, I'm going to just open it when I'm ready, because I'm filming, I want to get myself repositioned. So I'm just going to open it right when I'm going to use it, and be careful applying it. You definitely want to be wearing gloves while you're doing this part. You didn't need the gloves really for doing the alcohol step, but anyways, for this part, wear gloves. All right, so I'm going to tear the package open. Oh yeah, I guess it's a little sponge that's in here. Yep. And just going to run it along. Particularly, I'm just trying to make sure I get all the way out to that radius where I'm going to apply the tape. And I'm going to use 1 pack per side, flipping it over. It's kind of running down my hands a little bit here. All the way out to the end. I'm just going to come along behind the bolt heads. So I've got a coating on this whole stretch. It stinks just a little bit, kind of just like model glue. Do you expect anything else from 3M? Making sure I got it right out to the leading edge. Now you're only supposed to put this on in moderate temperatures, and it can't be cold and it can't be hot. So like 60 to 75 degrees, something like that, which is exactly the temperature the shop is right now. So that's 1 used up. Now I'm going to use the other package for the other side. Well, managed to tear it in half. You can see it running down my gloves, so gloves are definitely a good idea. So you might be thinking, geez, this is going to permanently leave something on your car. Well, remember, you'd have to be 4 inches tall, laying on your back, looking straight up to see this. This is a part of your car, honestly, you're hardly ever going to see. So that's it. You're supposed to give that 30 to 90 seconds for that to flash off and completely dry. So we're going to wait about a minute here, and then we'll start sticking the pieces on. So I've got my 7 pieces all trimmed and cut now, and it's time to actually stick them on the car, and this is kind of a one-way trip. So I'm going to pretty much start focusing and not talking. We're just going to, basically be peeling off the backing and going over, and we're going to be paying attention to how far in or out, so we get the reveal right. And the very first piece, you have to worry about getting it on center line. So I can't really fake this one and then do it again later, so you'll see me here focusing a little bit more. And we'll probably use fast forward for some of this. So once it's peeled, it's just all black. And so I've got I can see my center line bolt here, and I'm just spacing off. And I'm just going to get my bull nose. Holy crap, that sticks great. Yikes. I'm just barely touching the front nose edge, and that is like gripping onto the car with a death grip. So that's good enough. I don't think I want to commit anymore to that piece. So I'm going to get the second piece. At least there's still a hope that I could probably peel that off if I tried. I nose this one up to that one carefully. I'm just following the curve. And that's good enough. Get my third piece. And then the fourth piece. Now this is the one that's going to be too long, so I'm not pulling the tape off on it yet. I'm going to butt it up. And there's a bit of a jog back here, so I'm just going to trim it first, then we'll come back over. And this one I want to have a nice clean cut because it's going to be the visible end. All right. I'm going to trace it from behind. And that's what I need to trim off. I'm going to take off just a little more, just a tiny bit more than the marker. So let's go check it out. and it follows the painted edge pretty well. So I'm happy with that. Just carefully lining up this edge to edge. All right, so if we stand back and look at it a little bit, even though all the fingers aren't stuck up flat yet, we can see I've got a pretty continuous line all following the front nose. So let's just keep going the other direction. All right, the same deal with the this end one. I'm going to have to do a little layout to trim it. So I have not peeled the tape off. All right, so before I press it, so the next stage is basically to commit it and to press it into place the whole way along and just hold it for about 5 seconds. I'm just going to use the palm of my hands, but I'm just going to stand back and have a look at it before I commit. And maybe the camera can come back and stand about where I was and just have a look at it. So basically now you can see essentially a bullnose line all the way around the front. And I'm pretty happy with that. So the instructions basically say to just use the palm of your hand and press up for a little bit just to make sure it makes good contact. So I'm going to start right in the middle and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm covering about 2 at a time. So just to give you an idea how well it's stuck, if I grab the block and pull up and down, you can actually see it flexing the actual nose of the car, and it is on there. And then you can see where I'm stuck in behind the bolts. So you just take your time and work your way along. You may be laying on the floor looking up, but this isn't really hard at all. Just the blood drains out of your hands and arms. You just take your time and get it stuck on solid. So here we are. It's taken me about an hour, which is realistic for if you were doing it yourself. And I've got it all press fitted up to the car, and I'm going to lower it down so you can see what that looks like too. But that from below, you know, the reveal line, it wasn't really hard. This is something anybody could do. It's almost a perfect fit. That 1.5 inches goes right to the back of where the lip is. So I'm pretty positive this is going to work. That glue stuck like crazy. So let's bring it down to the ground and see what it looks like from above. Hopefully it looks pretty sharp with this nice black trim line now. All right, it's back to the ground. And if we have a pan shot of the area, I mean, honestly, you can't, it's black. It's supposed to be hard to see. And you might be able to see it a little bit with a little reflection now. But that looks perfect. There it is. And it's just a black little trim line following the bottom of the nose of the car now. And if I come up to a curb, it's basically, unless I'm hitting parking, a big giant piece of concrete, it's going to glide along on this, and I should get some, a chance to back off, but I won't feel like I'm grinding the paint off. Now in the future, I could always peel one of these off and stick a new one on. At $99, this is a tremendous value. So there you have it. And let's have a look at it from the wheel well side here, how that ended up. So we've got our, just trimmed off to the end of the edge of the wheel opening. You could fine tune that with a knife if you want to make it a little cleaner than that even. But really looks good. Hopefully that gives you a $99 skid plate solution. If yours is already all scraped up, but you want to protect it a little bit, it's 99 bucks. It takes an hour of time to do it. Just put it up on some jack stands and get underneath and stick them on. So at least at this point, I think it's probably a really good deal. I'll probably do a follow-up video in 6 months to a year to show you what it looks like after I'm sure I've dragged the nose a few times. It's been pressure washed a bunch of times. It's been in California winter, California summer, and we'll see if the pieces keep sticking. But for now, that'll be it. You can check out my companion blog article, which will have links to where you can buy the product and anything else, kind of a write-up of how to put this together. If you enjoy articles like this, please go ahead and subscribe. Up here you'll see our latest video. And if you have any comments, please leave them down below. I love to hear them. Thanks for watching.
Make a joke about here.
Oh yeah, if you hung on this long, you're going, Steve, what the hell's going on with your grill, man? I've got it apart because I'm refinishing that for my next video. Check it out later.